So I'm a good old-fashioned patriarchal womanizer with good old-fashioned misogynistic values. I'm a man's man, and I raised my son to be a man's man too. Now, ironically, that I'm past my sexual prime and getting older, some might now call me an incel, to be honest, because I had so much sex when I was younger and in my prime that eventually I literally exhausted my libido. I fucked about 86 women in my life that I can remember and count, though I can't count that high. And ironically, over a quarter of that, or almost a third, I don't know, I'm not that great with numbers, okay? Fucking was more my thing than counting and math. But like between 25 and 30 of them was all in one 9-month period when I was at the very top of my game and was a nightclub promoter. And I don't know, I suppose that eventually you just get tired of it, gets old. Though having a kid helps with that too, because once you've accomplished the actual point of having sex, things sort of change. Priorities change. And I had him when I was in my prime too, and now that I'm in my late 30s, he's actually a teenager now. And I don't think anyone will be too surprised to find out that he hates me now, as teenagers tend to do when they get to a certain age, and their dads are misogynistic assholes who never even liked their mom and was just using her for sex and a place to stay. But honestly, I wasn't a deadbeat dad like I was a deadbeat boyfriend. I loved the hell out of my kid and was a very active parent. Back when he was a little kid, he actually loved me and everything was great. He was like my sidekick for the first 12 years or so, and we'd be running around the city pretending to be superheroes, going on adventures, and picking up chicks all the way. My favorite time was when he was an older toddler, so he was getting big enough to do stuff and communicate pretty well, but still small enough to throw away up into the air and catch him super easy and pretend that you're like the Incredible Hulk or something. And they really do look up to you like you're a superhero, and it just feels great. It's so much better than any relationship you can have with anyone else, especially their mother. Or any woman, right? But when you have a little boy, they've got all this energy, and it's just so much fun. It is the most fun you'll have in your entire life, because they always want to do things like wrestle around and play rough, and they're so small that they can't hurt you no matter what they do. So they'll just be jumping all over you, and you'll just let them, and then you can just toss them right up into the air and catch them and then throw them onto a pile of pillows. And there's literally nothing that will ever be more fun than that. That is the most fun a man can possibly have. You think getting wasted and fucking bitches is fun? Wait till you have a kid that is like a tiny version of you to wrestle around and play sports and pretend to be superheroes with. It is so fun, but the only problem is the bigger they get, the more it goes downhill, and sooner or later they get as big and strong as you were when you were a teenager, except you're not a teenager anymore. You're getting old and creaky and your joints hurt, and they want you to teach them how to fight and spar with them, and then when you try to, they just put you on your ass and hurt your damn back, because you could tell that they weren't playing. And deep down, they were actually secretly harboring years worth of pent-up anger and aggression towards you. You can feel it, all their repressed rage from every time out you ever put them in and every other punishment you've ever given them. Every time you took away something they wanted, every time you yelled at them. It all comes back out on you when they are in their teens. And then, when they say they want to go outside and wrestle around, you gotta watch out. Guard your ass and be careful not to hurt them. Give them any reason to hit you as hard as they can. You know, you gotta be careful when they are growing up and you're wrestling with them. Be careful not to hurt them too much or train them too well in doing so, because, then they may be little, but they'll remember. They'll remember those instances and use every wrestling match after that as practice. Slowly learning your moves, over time training themselves until eventually they knock you right the fuck out, which is exactly what happened with me and my son when we were practicing boxing together, because I, of course, wanted him to take some sort of martial arts or self-defense or, boxing classes. And he did eventually end up knocking me out. Oh, man. But that was probably, honestly, one of the proudest moments in my entire life, getting knocked out by my own son. Really, it made me proud, warmed my heart. But now, when he was a little kid, like many parents, I, of course, had to get him one of those toy cars big enough for him to get right into and ride around so that he could pretend to drive just like an adult, like he had seen me and his mom and, my girlfriends doing. And I'd take him outside to ride around in it, and of course he starts imitating me in it. So picture this. My little kid jumps in his big toy car. It's red and yellow with, the very high top. It's more tall than it is long. And you have to pedal it with your feet. And he starts riding off. And there's the parking lot and the sidewalk. And he rides in a little circle and then pulls up next to me and says, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to go get a hot girl." And then he starts to drive off again. And I'm like laughing. And I go, "Oh, yeah, buddy." And he goes, "Yeah, 1 for you, 2 for me." And he rides off and literally starts hollering at girls in the parking lot and on the sidewalk. And, we live in the inner city, so you can imagine the type of girls that are out there. And he starts hollering at him going, "Hey, girl, what's your phone number?" He's trying to pick up chicks in his little toy car just like he's seen me doing. True story. Funny, right? Oh, man. I mean, hearing me tell it is probably, pretty funny, but you had to see it. Seeing this is like a whole nother dimension, of course. And it's just so hilarious when little kids try to do grown-up shit and imitate their parents. You're chopping wood, so they'll come up to you and like, "Hey, Dad, can I chop wood too?" Like, "Sure, son, just grab that hatchet over there. That's about the right size. Yeah, just grab onto that with 2 hands and start swinging it at some sticks to make us some kindling." No, but really, when my son imitated me in his toy car like that, I thought it was so funny that I literally told the next girl I went on a date with, which was actually our first date. And speaking of toy cars, I went to this date in my current girlfriend's car. Since currently I didn't have a car, as I had totaled my last one when I was dating my son's mother. You see, I did both of these things, showing up in my girlfriend's car that was obviously not mine, and telling her about my son imitating me picking up chicks in a car, because I wanted this girl who I was on a first date with to know what kind of old-fashioned misogynistic patriarchal values I have, and what kind of values as a partner she can expect from me, right? And not only that, but what kind of values as a father, that I have, and that I am the type of father who not only likes to drive around picking up chicks, but will even take his girlfriend's car to do it, and his son. And I'm already teaching my son to do it and carry on this legacy after I am gone, because it is important as a father to impart values and traditions and leave behind some sort of legacy with your children. All right. For after I am gone, maybe not dead, but just retired from the game because my dick fell off or grew polka dots or something. And I wanted her to know that those were the kind of values I would impart not only to my current son, but any kids that she might bear for me one day too, as I'm down at the sports bar picking up chicks. And she must have gotten the message loud and clear, because when we were back at my place making out, and it's starting to get hot and heavy, and I'm taking off her clothes, she stopped me from taking off her clothes and stops herself from getting too hot and heavy with me and letting things get too far sexually, before even allowing herself to get. And after things had heated up significantly, especially since we were wearing our clothes, so it was getting really hot, and we started to begin to get real skin-on-skin contact, and start to do stuff under the clothes, slide each other's hands under the clothes. Instead of continuing with the taking off of the clothes, her frigid ass, stopped herself and just basically called herself a cab and ran out. And I really, truly didn't care. I don't even remember specifically how far we got, if I was able to get any titty action, or I know I had my hand up her shirt and down her pants, but it was not even memorable enough to know if I felt her nipples, or stuck my finger inside of her, or was able to suck her titties at all or anything. But I do know that our clothes never came off, and that she left before things could get too far, and it made for a very unmemorable experience, except for the funny parts. When she the next day or two sent me a instant message on OkCupid, the website I had originally met her on, basically sharing her feelings and her thoughts on why she could never see me again, in spite of the fact that she had a great time with me. And I barely skimmed over it at all. I got the gist of it by glancing at it and just typed in response, LOL, and did the same thing I had done the previous night, which was to just move right the fuck on, because I didn't truly care at all. I mean, she was gone anyways, so what the hell else am I gonna do? I called up another girl in my phone and just used my raging hard-on on her instead. So, it worked out. And when I got that message from her, I just went right back to focusing on other girls. I actually told my girlfriend about it, and we had a nice laugh about it together while I was driving her in her car. It was a bit curious, though, because of how far this one let it go on top of the clothes with all of her clothes on. Like, it was kind of a strange thing for an adult woman who had, already let it get so far to do. And for us to just be sexual on top of the clothes kind of felt like high school. I've always thought about that. Like, maybe she had some body image issues. Or, honestly, part of me suspects that it might have actually had more to do with the fact that I didn't pay for her drink at the restaurant or cafe or wherever we went. Someplace completely unremarkable and not memorable. Or her movie ticket for the movie we saw, which was actually the highlight of the evening, not making out with her or touching her or anything. It was the movie. And I didn't pay for anything of hers on the date, really, because I didn't feel like it was the right thing to do. Okay, though that does not align with my values. A man should not have to pay to get sex, but unfortunately, many women like her are whores like that, who will only give sex to men who pay. That's their values. They value prostitution. And I respect those values. I didn't shame her for it. And, it's just so weird because she never said anything about disagreeing with my patriarchal polygamous values or the fact that I'm an obvious womanizer. It never seemed to matter. And, it didn't stop her from getting sexual with me to a degree. In fact, it wasn't until I dated this political feminist art gallery owner, the type, extreme liberal, and she was also extremely frigid, sexually speaking, and actually made me wait for sex longer than any other woman. She made me sort of like go steady with her. She would act like she was so progressive and new agey, but yet old-fashioned enough to like maybe go steady with her. While I was using her for a place to stay, which is like, sure, I don't give a shit. I was still going on dates with other girls, coming home to her. I knew that she was jealous enough that she would fuck me probably at least out of pure jealousy sooner or later. Which she did. And maybe not entirely out of jealousy. She made me wait until we did mushrooms together. So I think it was because she was feeling more of a connection then. And it was a pretty crazy experience. Especially because not only was I tripping, but by that time, since it had been so long that we had gone without having sex, I had gotten to know her more like a friend. I thought of her not in a sexual way, but more like a friend or a sister or something, because I lived with her. I had gotten close to her, but we hadn't fucked. So think of how I'm thinking of her, and then I'm tripping with her and fucking her. And honestly, there was an element of it that felt wrong and kind of gross, especially with her being a feminist, even though she was attractive. Obviously feminist ideology is fucking disgusting. And when I told her the story of my son getting in his toy car and saying he was going to go get us some hot girls, this bitch actually had the balls to tell me that it was offensive. Can you believe that? She doesn't respect my misogynistic values, but I have to respect her feminist values. So I said, what's so offensive about the phrase hot girls? And she said, well, it's objectifying. And I said, okay. How? How is that objectifying to women? And she says very firmly, haltingly, like a female Dwight Schrute or something, just like this: girls aren't hot. Women are beautiful. I'll always remember that super arbitrary feminist reaction and wording and enunciation. And the idea behind it, too, has always confounded me. This desire to censor a toddler who said the word hot girl in a very funny, cute manner. Now that is politically radical. I mean, you have to admit, it's so extreme. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's fucking comical. You know, it's not just ridiculous, it's redonkulous, as many feminazis are. It's like they're these female communist cartoon villains or something, you know, like a female cartoony version of Dwight Schrute.